I would really go back and play against Srinath and Manish Prabhakar instead of playing against Jasprit Bumrah, I can tell you that. Right? Yeah. If I feel that my records are threatened, I think Jaiswal's got a very good chance to do so. I don't know if you're going to like it or not, but Surya Kumar Yadav has to bat the three.
Have you learned any Hindi?
Chhole Bhature, that's it.
Hello, welcome to PTI, to our show at 4 Parliament Street. Let me take you all back 20 years to Antigua in the West Indies. April 13th, 2004, it was the 4th test between the West Indies and England. And this gentleman I just met achieved something that no other batsman had done before. Brian Lara's 400, not out, is etched in the memories of every cricketing fan in the world and embedded for eternity on YouTube, where it has 34 million views and counting. Lara is now offering his insights as an expert commentator on Star Sports for this year's IPL. Brian Lara, welcome to PTI. It's a pleasure having you here. I'll start off by asking you that you are the original greats of the game who were playing T20 initially. A little bit, not too much.
Not much.
Just imagine if something like IPL had happened then, how would it have affected your game?
I think it would have been a positive effect on my game because if I was to go back to the start of my career, I was a very diminutive player, small, not big muscles. And I sort of used about 20 to 25 one-day internationals before I played my second test to start learning to hit the ball and finding gaps and scoring quickly. And I think one of my character traits as a batter is aggression before defense. I like to be an attacking player, and then my secondary position was, okay, that's a good ball, I'd defend it. And I felt that if I had to improvise or if I had to change my game because T20 was, back in the middle of my career and I still had 5-10 years left, I felt that I would have found a way to find a technique that is capable of playing all formats of the game. So I'm one that I feel very positive, and I think the involvement of the game where it's gone now to T20 and we can rival other sports over a 3-hour period is excellent for the game of cricket. I'm a purist. I love Test cricket. I wouldn't give up that part of my career for anything else. But T20 came at the right time. Well, maybe it came at the wrong time. Maybe it should have been 10 years earlier. But I felt that if I had the opportunity to play, I think I would have been able to play at a very good level, an attractive level.
Yeah, and also economically, it has created a level playing field for a lot of young players, right? The advent of T20 and IPL especially.
Yeah, I think what it has done, for some boards, they have sort of arrested the strength or the power that some cricket boards had over their players, where obviously playing international cricket was the only form of cricket that, really give you that, recognition and that professional sort of career. And I felt that I can speak on behalf of, where I played in the West Indies, sometimes it was used as that sort of thing over your head, you have to play for us. Now how the game has gone and the franchise version of the game, starting with the IPL and of course now many leagues across the world, is given players, and not just players with international status, but a lot of other players, an opportunity to go out and ply their trade, play cricket around the world, provide for their family. Yeah. And, I think it's great.
Right.
What's your opinion on the Indian squad? Like there's a sameness to the squad, the top order, batting order. What's your opinion on that vis-a-vis the last 2 World Cups? And the second part is, Barbados, Guyana, Antigua, all those venues. So 4 spinners, do you think is one too many?
Well, okay. I think first of all, in terms of, how the players that were selected in the squad, let me start by saying that that's a dilemma that a lot of countries have faced in the past. The West Indies in 1988 would have had a World Cup team with Viv Richards in his mid to late 30s, Gordon Greenidge, a couple other great players. And obviously, when you have such great players, you want to stick to that experience because you feel that they can do it. And there's nothing wrong with it. You've got a lot of exciting young players coming out. And, you also have that sort of conundrum. What do we do? But I think having the right mix is very, very important. India's gone with a team that has experience. My advice, and it's not my criticism, it's my advice, is to Rahul Dravid, is to make sure and have a plan. Sometimes when you have a team with a lot of superstars, you forget the plan and you believe that the superstars can do it. They just have to turn up. Sometimes you may feel as a coach intimidated telling Sir Vivian Richards or Virat Kohli, exactly what you expect of them. I think that's the advice I will give. I think the team is capable of winning the World Cup. Yes, it's a team that have maybe a couple youngsters missing because, of the situation. But I still believe that if they plan properly, right, I believe that India could win the World Cup. My one advice, and, I don't know if you're going to like it or not, but Surya Kumar Yadav has to bat the three. He just has to bat the three. He is one of the greatest T20 players in the game. And, you speak to players like Sir Viv Richards, and he will tell you he used to want to get out there in the middle. And I feel that that's the same thing with Surya Kumar Yadav. So get him out there as quickly as possible. He's not an opener. Get him out there at three. And if he can bat for 10, 15 overs, you know what's going to happen. He's going to win. He's going to put you in an unassailable position if you're batting first, or he's going to win the game if he's batting second. And then let everybody sort of, position themselves outside of that. But a good structure is important. In terms of the spinners, I don't want to dig too deep into having four spinners because I don't think you're going to play four spinners. But I like the fact that Yuzvendra Chahal is in the team. He is not just an IPL star. You look at him bowl, you look at the brains that he put behind the ball, the deliveries, he is outthinking the batter, and also Kuldeep. So I see those guys are guys who are going to get wickets for you, not just look to restrain the batter or scared to bowl, attacking delivery. So I think having those in the small grounds in the Caribbean, I'm not sure what the size of the grounds will be in America. I think it's very, very important. So in terms of spin, I think playing a couple is important. So maybe having a couple reserves is also important. You look at Jadeja, you would think that he will hold his spot down as an all-rounder maybe.
There has been a lot of debate on exclusion of explosive batsman Rinku Singh. So is he unlucky to miss out from the squad?
Yeah, I think Ajit Agarkar said it. He said that's one of the more difficult decisions to have made, to be made. I like the selection of Shivam Dube. I don't know if they were in competition, but someone who is a very good player of spin, the slower tracks in the Caribbean would be good. So yes, Rinku Singh, could count himself very unlucky for the amazing couple of years that we've had. But I think, when these things are all said and done, you have to sort of shut the book on selection and start supporting the team and see how best the players that they have selected could go about winning the tournament.
Which teams, in your opinion, are likely going to make the semi-finals, and which one of them do you think has the best chance to lift the trophy?
Well, I think, I haven't studied how, the different groupings, right? But I think that what is outstanding for me is that the West Indies should do well. They're playing at home. They've got a lot of individual stars on their own. And if they come together as a team, they'll play well. I think India, with all their cry about selection, I think they'll find themselves in the top four. England, they seem to enjoy the Caribbean. They lay on the beach a lot. I think that brings out the best in them. So I think England is going to be there as well. And for me, in terms of the fourth spot, again, not looking at the groupings, I have a dark horse. I think Afghanistan is a team that is on the progress in all the World Cups that they've played in the past. I understand there may be a little bit of injury scare with Rashid Khan, which is going to damage them a lot. But I think that they are also capable of getting into that top 4. And for me, a West Indies-India finals is going to make up for so much wrong that has happened in the past. Thus, India missing out on the 2007 second rounds, that killed us in the Caribbean. We don't want that to happen again. So I think a good calm for that would be West Indies versus India in the finals. And may the best team win.
What about Pakistan?
Pakistan is very, very good, but again, a team that is always in sort of a tumultuous state, in terms of a last-minute coach, in terms of, players, and stuff like that. You always feel that this is a team that could shock everyone and get into the finals and win. Amazing. And if that happens, it would be amazing for Pakistan. But then if they don't, then you say, well, that was the reason, this was the reason. They have so many reasons and so many things that are going wrong that you feel that, it will take a Herculean effort for them to sort of, keep going through a tournament that will be asking them a lot of questions.
Brian, do you see cricket going the football way, where leagues take precedence over international assignments, unless we're talking about World Championships or World Cups?
Well, yes. I mean, let's just look at football, for instance, where other than the big cups, European Cups, World Cup, South American Cups, they may have a few friendlies. So the Barcelonas, the Manchester United, the Manchester City, they have their footballers generally for 11 months of the year, right? Every year. And if they have to run away for a friendly or maybe for the African Nations Cup, it may happen, once in a while. And that seems to be working for football. It's taken off the burden as well for each country to be finding ways of making money by having football matches and back and forth, like what is going on with cricket. The West Indies now is in a situation where, every away tour, they get this amount of money. Every home tour, they have to pay the same amount of money. Our gate receipts can't, make us survive. So we are very thankful whenever India tours the West Indies. There's a lot of TV rights, money passing around, which is great. So it's hard to see outside of the big 3, Australia, England, and India, how countries are going to survive when economically it's tough for them. And secondly, they don't have their best players playing because their best players are making a living for their family elsewhere. I think if ICC puts their head together and find a way where, yes, franchise cricket takes over, but in a much more structured way and not in terms of the free fall that is going on at the moment.
Hi, Brian. My question is on captaincy. Do you think captaincy prevents great players reach their true potential? And did you feel that way when you were captaining?
Actually, no. I think captaincy could be a big asset to some players, and it could be a liability. It depends on the player. It depends on his character. It depends on his history. Sometimes a great player finds himself all of a sudden thrust into leadership, maybe because of what he's doing as a batter or bowler, or maybe from years within the team, and he finds himself in a leadership position, and maybe he wasn't cut out for that. And then you have, some great players who waited in the wings, and they were captain of their school teams, they were captain of their under 16, under 19, and they are primed for it. And then you just have a person like MS Dhoni, who is just an inspirational leader, someone who can come out and do that. So to answer, there's no right or wrong answers to your question. It all depends on that individual, his character traits, and, what motivates him. And if motivation is, putting a team together and that motivates his own performance, great. If it puts him under pressure, then he will have to look and think about it.
At your peak, you and Sachin Tendulkar kind of carried the entire batting burden of your respective teams. In the current generation of cricketers, who do you think comes close to that kind of a stature? Okay.
Well, first of all, I want to correct you because, it's all well and good to be put up in that sort of upper echelon and people look at you in that way. And, you might have been the premier batsman for your team, but in terms of carrying the burden, I think it's unfair. It's unfair in an Indian sense because you've got guys like Rahul Dravid, the Wall, you got the Laxmans, you got all these other guys who played pivotal parts in Indians' cricket history. And in my case, a Chandrapal, a Jimmy Adams, a Carl Hooper, on the bowling side, you had Ambrose and Wall. So in team sport, it's not right to point out any one individual. And I strive to be the best, and Sachin strive to be the best, and to be considered to be one of the best is good enough. But in terms of that team structure, and I think Michael Jordan is also a very good example. Someone who played in the 80s, didn't win a NBA championship, and then when he started getting the right players in the right position, then you start seeing, and he says it, he says if he didn't have Pippen or he didn't have this player, it would have been difficult. So in the current thing in world cricket, I believe that the game has advanced so much that you're getting a lot of teams that are well equipped throughout. And yes, you're going to have a Virat Kohli that stands out for India, and maybe a Babar Azam standing out for Pakistan, and Steve Smith in Test cricket. But I think the game has improved and improved. And another question which I can answer is that people ask, was the game better back then than now? I don't think so. I think the game, I would really go back and play against was it Srinath and Manish Prabhakar instead of playing against Jasprit Bumrah, I can tell you that. Right? Yeah. And I'm sure that everybody would love to play against the West Indies now from the past instead of playing against Marshall, Ghana. So I think everything is, is a cycle, and India's strength now is great. The West Indies' strength back 20 years ago was much better. So, yeah. So
I know you're being modest, and greatness cannot be suppressed. And speaking of greatness, in my introduction, as you heard, I spoke about your 400 runs, 400 not out. I'm sure this question has been asked you a million times. I'm going to ask you again. What was going through your mind when you hit that? It was a sweep, I think, to fine leg.
For 400 is, and the late Bob Willis say, maybe the most important single. But I think, first of all, getting to a 300 again and getting the opportunity to go past Matthew Hayden, my 375 and Matthew Hayden's 380 was just it was a great honor and privilege. I still believe that everything has to be, destined. Everything has to be in the most perfect position, for you to score 400 or 501 and stuff like that. And I still believe it's all destiny. So to chinks another 20 runs past 380, well, as a captain, I think I had the privilege to do that, to be to get to 400 and to hit that single to get to the 400 mark was a tremendous experience for me. And you'd look back and you think, well, you have one, you have a two, you have a triple, and you're a few runs away from scoring a 4, and you already have the 5. It's a wonderful individual achievement. Yeah. But I'm sure no one here will be able to tell me how much runs I had in the series before I scored 400. I only had 100 runs. I was averaging 16 in 3 test matches, and I was in the doldrums at that time. So to muster up that sort of form overnight was something very special.
So did you have to do any mental makeup the day? It was the 3rd day of the match, I think, when you came in. What you must have thought of it?
You know what? Less than I thought of it 10 years earlier. Because, when you're 24 years old and you're going towards a record that is 38 years old, you're nervous, your hands are sweating, you're uneasy because this is you haven't been there.
Uncharted territory.
And I think 400 was a little bit more calculated. I understand the positions. I knew where, if I got to this total, on the 2nd day, where I'd be coming from. So I think I was a lot more mature and a lot more well prepared for the 400.
Yeah. One more question about you before we go back to contemporary cricket. I believe you named your daughter Sydney on the 277 knock, and that's why, because it came in Sydney. Do you worry that 277 knock could have come in Thiruvananthapuram? Would you have named her?
Can you imagine? Yeah, there are many stories to that, but so it's a situation where I sort of begged her mother, is it possible? And she said, fine. And then I had a second daughter. Her name is Tyler, and I asked if I could name my second daughter. And before I could even say Adelaide, I want to name her Adelaide, where I broke Alan Border's record. She said no.
So Thiruvananthapuram would have been out, obviously.
So, Brian, can you talk about your friendship with Sachin Tendulkar? Has a bond endured, or what sort of conversations do you have generally?
Yeah, I mean, today, we will talk about golf, more. Whenever we meet, it's most likely around the game of golf. And it was recently as in Hyderabad when Mumbai Indians played against SRH. For the last 10 or so years, we have a nice laugh and a nice conversation about the comparisons and, how unnecessary those were. I think, when we became really good friends, we were playing a game against Pakistan, the 1992 World Cup winners in Toronto. And there was a bit of a rule because the cricket surface was something like this. It was artificial, and they put a board and then they put a carpet over it. So it was a lot of pace. And the bowlers were allowed to bowl from 10 yards. Ambrose was getting the ball to bounce a lot, and they went on and they made a lot of runs, maybe 300. And Imran Khan was with his team, and they started off, and me and Sachin started off really well and started to bang the ball about. And then I looked back and I saw Waqar Younis coming from 30 yards, and he bowled this vicious short ball, passed over Sachin's head, over the keeper's head. And I walked on to Sachin and I said, this is unfair, what's going on? And he looked at me, he said, don't say anything. And the next ball was short, and it went about 40 to 50 rows back up in the stands. And then I said, well, okay, let's have some fun, And that opening partnership, I think we got 200 plus. And since then, we are like bread and butter. We pretty much tried to spend as much time together when we could. We talk cricket, we talk different things, birthday wishes. And we both Taurians, which is great. So the friendship has been good. And I think the rivalry was more on the outside in terms of the spectators and people and the writers comparing. But I don't think we really buttered about that too much.
Hi, Brian. My question is on the incentivization of Test cricket. Just 2 months back, BCCI announced an incentive scheme where if one player plays more than 50% of the Test match in the year, they get good amount, and 75% there's a different slab. So BCCI is a rich board; they can afford to do it. So what about smaller countries where the board is not so rich? So I would like to have your thoughts on that. How does Test cricket survive in the onslaught of these limited overs, T20s and stuff? How do you lure the youngsters to stick to long formats?
Well, I think first of all, we have to sort of, understand that cricket is a sport. Sport is fueled by sponsorship, but it's also fueled in terms of the spectators coming out to watch the game. And that is a very important part. Now, if you say, Brian, I'll give you 10 times the amount of money to play with nobody in the stadium, would you play? I'd say, no, I won that 15, 20,000 people watching me. I'm happy with that side of it. So incentivizing or what BCCI is doing, because yes, they have the money, is one aspect of it. I think you have to incentivize the public as well. You have to, first of all, let them understand what the game means and try to get them back into the ground, because I remember as a little kid lining up at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning to go see West Indies play against India in 1980 something, or against Pakistan, and getting into the stadium at 6 o'clock. The place is packed. And now that I've played cricket, I now realize that I'll be pulling the pillow over my head at 6 o'clock still, while the entire place is packed. So the players are one thing. Of course, the players' remuneration to the players is great to keep them interested in the game. But when you walk into a test match and there's nobody at that test match, is also something that is not as encouraging. And any sponsor, and I'm almost sure you experience it in India, where a sponsor prefers to spend his money on 3 hours of cricket instead of 5 days of cricket. Isn't that true? I'm almost sure of that. You'd see more money in a T20 version of the game compared to, hey, you got 5 days to promote your product. And that, that corporate person will say, but there's nobody to promote it to, nobody's watching it. Give me the 3 hours, I will pay even more money. So I think getting the crowd back is also something that should be discussed in terms of, having that Boxing Day test match in Australia and Lords and these things. Why are they getting the crowds still coming out to these matches?
Brian, we recently saw a very heartwarming clip of Yashasvi Jaiswal running to you and giving you a hug after an IPL match. You were also seen smiling. It would be really interesting to know what was that conversation that the two of you had.
Well, that conversation is, I think it starts from, I think the only thing I'd reveal about it, because I wouldn't reveal the conversations that we have or had and will have in the future, because I think he's an outstanding young cricketer. And what I like about him, he's very humble and he's willing to work. But the first time I properly met him and sort of, immediately found myself, attached to him was last year IPL, the first game, Rajasthan Royals versus SRH. And after the game, I went across to the hotel with a friend of mine from the Caribbean who knew Just Butler. So he went across, and it was midnight, and they won the match. They beat us. I was the coach of SRH, and he found me, and I promise you, I left the hotel at 4 o'clock in the morning. Just talking to this guy, he just wanted to hear more and more and more information, and I think that is one of his amazing traits, his ability to want to learn as quickly as possible. So our conversations are really based on, trying to make him a better cricketer. And he'll ask questions, and I'm available for anybody that has my number. Any young cricketer that has my number, they know that they can call and we can talk cricket and stuff like that. And I'm really happy to have developed a decent friendship with him.
What are your thoughts on Abhishek Sharma, another young cricketer who also credits you to be his mentor?
Yeah, well, again, this is someone who I met a couple of years ago when I was the batting coach at SRH. I spent 2 years there, 2022 and 23. And if I have to be, I'm allowed to be a little bit biased. When I see a left-hander, I love it. I just love a left-hander. That's the side that I played on. So myself and Abhishek have developed a very good relationship. And these youngsters are very humble. They want to learn. You find some scenarios that, some youngsters ignore you. They think maybe you don't have the right information for them. But what I like about these two youngsters is that they are willing to learn and they want to get to the highest point. And if I feel that my records are threatened, I think Jaiswal's got a very good chance to do so. I think he's got capabilities, a couple double hundreds in Test cricket already. I think he's that good. But both left-handers I have great admiration for.
Hi, Brian. My question is totally non-cricket question. So what do you like about India besides the fan following, major fan following? Are you a Bollywood fan?
I'm not a big Bollywood fan. I do come from a country with majority Indian population, about 42% Africans is in the late 30s. And then, of course, everybody else, the Chinese, Caucasians. So there is a lot of interest in sort of Bollywood. I'm not even an English movie fan. So unfortunately, so Harry Potter and these things I haven't really seen. But what I do like about India is the, unconditional love. I think when you come to India, the way how you're treated, and when if you turn any corner, there's a smile, on someone's face just from seeing you. I think that is something that is refreshing. And, it's also very positive. It has a positive effect on me being in India, being loved in a foreign country, and the way that they appreciate the sport that I play. So can you imagine, walking in Miami on South Beach, and everybody's pushing you out of the way. But in India, it's a whole different story. Everybody pushing into you. So I think that from someone who started playing the game for the adulation from my father and from my siblings to having the adulation in India is something that I love. But it's also the serenity of the people. I think, I'm not embroiled in other aspects of Indian life and politics, but I know about sport, and I think they have a great appreciation for their own and foreigners.
So here's the headline for tomorrow. No Hollywood, no Bollywood, but India wins on love.
Brian, you followed IPL 24 very closely. What's your prediction for the playoffs? Who do you think? Who do you see?
Well, if I was to be honest, first of all, I have to make it very clear, because sometimes people will think, well, your relationship with SRH was so bad, but I'd really love to see SRH do well, because I feel it is a continuation of something. They maybe had 2 bad years, but I don't think you turn things around just in one season. So things were falling into place, and that's the situation. But I feel that presently that they're a little bit on a downward spiral, and you look at the teams that are beating them, it's teams that they dominated in the first rounds, like CSK, RCB. When a team is sort of not preparing in advance, not understanding the position that they're in. So they're doing well in the tournament at the beginning, but you always have to stay a step ahead of someone. If you're having a boxing match against a guy and you knock him out, he's not going to come back with the same tricks. He's going to come back with other tricks. So I feel they've lost their way there. So my teams, Rajasthan Royals, KKR, I think CSK is going to make it. For a couple of years now, Rajasthan Royals, really and truly, their combination and the makeup of their team, they are supposed to be winners for the last couple of years. And I hope that they don't find a way to mess it up this year, because again, with 2 quality spinners, with an opening bowler like Trent Boult, who takes wickets for fun in his first over, with a batting lineup where, don't talk about the top 3, talk about Parag, who just all of a sudden is a changed player. Rian Parag. I mean, that gives them, and 2 West Indians, of course, Hetmyer and our captain, Ravman Powell. I think that is the perfect team to win the IPL finals.
So, Brian, do you think that the dynamics of cricket is changing very fast, or it has already changed in the sense that, for example, a 20 ball or a 15 ball 50 by Fraser McGurk is more appreciated than a 70 ball or 80 ball 100 by Rohit Sharma or for that matter Virat Kohli. So you think that the strike rate is taking unprecedented importance over average or total runs made?
Well, you know what? I must say that I had a thought process, or I had an opinion about the T20 version of the game and who was the ideal player. And for maybe the last 12 or even more years, or maybe 12 years, since 2007-8, I felt that the better T20 cricketer to have is someone who understands the game, know when to attack, know when to defend, and they had a lot of structure in their batting. Each team needs that player. But looking at what's going on now, the strike rate of the SRH openers, McGirt, and the way how these guys are playing, it is a ridiculous thing that's happening to the game. I still believe, though, that we have to be a little bit critical of the bowlers. I feel that they're not bowling in the right areas to have these guys a little bit more under pressure. So you would have the Trent Boult, you will have the Jasprit Bumrah, you're going to have the Chahal and the other guys who keep it tight, one in every team. But I believe that some of the bowlers need to get their act together, because I don't think, I've played this game for so many years, I don't think it's that easy, to hit bowlers, good bowlers. I can't see Ambrose and McGrath in their prime, Wasim Akram in his prime, Waqar Younis. I don't know if you guys remember, there was a time when if Pakistan had 60 runs to defend in 10 overs, they will defend it with those 2 guys bowling in swinging Yorkers or reverse Yorkers, whatever they call it. But now I think the bowlers will have to improve their artwork in terms of to come to terms with what the batters are doing presently.
Do you think that this IPL has made the ordinary look so great and the great look so ordinary?
I don't think so. I think that you look at the guys who are leading. I mean, Virat Kohli is leading. I don't think he has a poor strike rate. There's a lot of criticism placed on him. He has his way of playing the game, and every team have to have a player like Virat Kohli, someone who is occupy one end and score at a certain rate whilst the others dominate. And you saw that with Phil Jacks when he scored the 100 and Virat Kohli played that anchor role. You look at Jasprit Bumrah. So I think the greats are still holding their own. And I wouldn't call the Will McGirt and these guys as average. I think that these guys, what they're doing with a cricket bat is something that I don't even understand. I have never played some of those shots that these guys are playing. So I wouldn't call them average. I think the innovative part of the game is growing, and we have to, I think it's going to change, and it's going to be exciting.
The role of a commentator in modern cricket and your stint with Star Sports, with all the technology coming in during this IPL, there's AI involved in multilingual commentary, ensuring that you guys can speak in regional languages as well. So your thoughts on all of this? And
well, I'm still learning. I'm still very young in the game, and sort of not forced back, because I enjoyed my few years with Star Sports before I went into coaching. But I'm back in that position now, and I think it's interesting. I think for me, and there are a lot of, nearly everybody played cricket that is commentating. Maybe 90% of the commentators would have played the game. One of the challenges that I have is sort of getting excited and sort of creating excitement for the crowd when I believe something average has happened. So a guy plays a big cover drive and it's inside edge for 4, and I have to get excited for it. It's kind of tough. He plays a pull shot and it's supposed to go there and it goes over the keeper's head for 6. And he's going excited and he's punching the air, and I say, that's a pull shot, that's not something. So for me, that is the challenging part. But to be a part of the IPL and to be a part of a cricket game, and say, for instance, when I was working with Fox and Shamar Joseph picked up those 7 wickets in that test match in Australia, and to be able to call that period is exciting in itself. My number one, I think, love at this time, with a couple of years experience that I have, is coaching. I think, working with young players and seeing them, grow is wonderful, and not being too much on the other side of the fence where, I don't like being too critical of players, and I like keeping my opinion sometimes behind closed doors. Yeah. So it's a learning experience for me being a commentator.
Without the use of AI, have you learned any Hindi? Which are the choicest, the best Hindi words that you have learned?
Chhole Bhature, that's
So back to this historic milestone of 400. Do you think this record will be broken in the near future? And my second question on Test cricket, you did mention a few occasions. Does the Test cricket hold any future? Has it lost its relevance?
Well, I hope it hasn't, because, we haven't educated the present public about the importance of batting a session and not losing a wicket and maybe scoring. We might be able to sit down there and say, this is intense. India can't afford to lose a wicket in this last 20 overs of the game. And, you see guys blocking and hanging in there. And that in you would bring out a certain amount of excitement. Whereas with another person now, with an iPhone or a Samsung or whatever else, would be, head in their phone. This would not be fun for them. So we haven't really educated the present day cricket spectator in terms of, the rudiments of the game for them to really appreciate it. And the shorter version of the game is taken over, and it's entertainment, and that's what people look for. That's what Americans look for. They want entertainment. You speak to an American, and I've done that many times, and he said, you play a game for 5 days and then you end up in a draw? What's that all about? Yeah. So it is difficult for Test cricket. I know it's going to be. I hope that the astute thinkers could find a way to make sure that it remains relevant. I like the Test Championship. I think that is important. And some way find something to make sure that the game remains relevant. In terms of the, I think your next question was
the first question. Do
400.
you think anyone will break your
Yeah,
record in the near future?
I think, first of all, the reason how you look at the decades of cricket, and I believe that the reason why I would have broken a record is because the pace that the game is being played at, and I think now, the pace that these guys are batting at, and you look at the guys over the years who have challenged that 300 mark and plus, it's a Chris Gale, it's Virender Sehwag, it's Sanat Jayasuriya, it's Inzamam Mahokar, it's Matthew Hayden. These are guys who, destroy bowling attacks. It wasn't, say for instance, a Dravid or Steve Smith in this present case. I don't think that player could do it, but a player who likes to score quickly, will have an opportunity. Jaiswal. I mean, I was in Australia when David Warner came close, and he's an aggressive player. So I believe, yes, I think it will be broken at some point in time. I think it has to be that person's destiny. Everything has to fall into place. And I look forward to that time. I hope it happens, whilst I'm still around.
Brian, parents play a very important role in everybody's lives. You come from a large family, 10 siblings, and your father was instrumental in making you a cricketer. But he did not live to see you make your debut in 1990. Just talk us through the whole process of how you were nurtured by your parents into becoming a cricketer.
Yeah, so I was born with 6 bigger brothers, right? So when you're born in a family that, love cricketers, I love cricket. A couple of my brothers would have been teenagers already. My dad loved the game of cricket. He always talked about, the opportunity that he might have had to represent Trinidad and Tobago, but his donkey cart didn't come in time and it took too long to get in the city. I don't believe that story. Right? And once, the team made 6 and it was 5 byes and he made 1. So he gives a lot of nice stories. He used to give a lot of nice stories in the past. But what happened was that I think one of the biggest things that happened to me is the fact that I was so young that I started to play cricket in the streets with older kids, including my brother. So I had to learn quickly. If you wanted to have a knock in the streets and there's 20 kids lining up, you have to learn to bat quickly. And I believe that played a very, very important part. My sister Agnes got me into a coaching clinic, or she told my dad about a coaching clinic called the Harvard Coaching Clinic. I was 6 years old. And I went there every Sunday morning to play cricket, more organized cricket. And that again played a very important part in my life. But my dad was a cricket nut. I think he had 6 boys before me. They didn't pull through. You have to pull through, And he sort of provided me with sort of everything that I wanted. Yeah. My mother, who was not too much worried about what happened on the cricket field, made sure that I had something to eat, made sure that, his son came back home and he wasn't injured. So I had a lot of love and I had a lot of attention towards achieving. I was at number 10. And I had to bat at number 10 in my family until I got, until they realized my potential.
That's amazing. Your house in Trinidad, I believe it has rooms named after English cricketers because you had knocked them out of the park.
I heard that too, but that's not true. That's not true.
You're not a fan of any particular film. What about song? Which is your favorite song?
I'm not, to be honest, it's like, I like friendship. That's what I like in India. I like friendship, and I have the greatest respect for all the actors, around Veer Singh and Shah Rukh Khan, and, we chat whenever we see each other, but, maybe if they pick up a cricket bat, we can really see if they can play cricket. That's what I'd be interested in.
At the peak of your career, Muthaiya Muralidharan was literally unreadable for most, but you went on a series to Sri Lanka, 688 runs in 3 test matches. Like at that time when others were not able to decipher what Murali was bowling, like what made you stand out the way you played Murali and Saklin? Just could you give us a sneak peek about how you did your homework?
Well, I think first of all, coming from the southern part of the Caribbean, Trinidad, and having a population where Indians were the higher part of the population, I played a lot of spin, right? So if you go from North Jamaica, you have the fast bowlers and a more of an African descent, and Barbados. But when you get down to Trinidad and Guyana, I think it has to do with the rice fields and the sort of, indentured laborers coming at the time. My forte was playing spin, growing up. And you come to Trinidad and you're going to face spin. If you're playing in the Sheffield Shield first class cricket, you're going to play against top class spinners. And so that's something that I grew up in through school cricket. So I had a greater appreciation for that side of it. With Murali, I felt that, I looked at what he was doing with his hands, and I may have struggled for the first over or two where trying to pick what's the doosra, which one is the off break, and the trajectory of each ball. But as soon as I got accustomed to that, I found that I won the war with Murali mentally too quickly. You know what I'm saying? I felt that when he looked at me and half an hour, 45 minutes, and I'm still in there, the cover drops back and the mid-on and the mid-off drops back, and he wants to bowl at the other batter, which for me was a victory. And I felt and that's the reason why I sort of dominated against him. And maybe, yes, if you ask me to, back in the day when Shane was alive, who I would want to face, I'd say Shane, because he was, but 2-3 hours later, Shane is sort of conjuring up something to come at you. And I felt that he had a little bit more mental and heart in terms of his bowling. But Murali was as dangerous as they come, and I saw him sort of bamboozle a lot of my players and a lot of players around the world.
Sports as an instrument of reform in the society, specifically, let's say, take crime, for example. Can sports be useful in pulling people away from crime, pulling youngsters away from crime?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because, crime is something that, sort of destroy communities, destroy countries. And in Trinidad and Tobago, we, seem to have a little dilemma with it. I would like to make this point very clear. Elite sport is very important. We cater for the elite sport. We have the best stadiums. We have, funds to make sure that, top sports men and women go to the Olympics, or cricket or football. I think that there should be some attention paid to that secondary level. Because just take, for instance, in the West Indies, we don't have 1,000 international cricketers between all formats of the game. I don't think so. I know that after I started in 1990, we started playing cricket in 1928. So you call that, 62 years. I'm not sure if my numbers are correct. I was only number 200 and something. So if we are closing in on 100 years of international cricket for a nation, and we don't have 1,000 cricketers, what does that say about the chances of any young man getting in, or young woman getting in to play that international level? It's very difficult. But that might be the passion of a lot of our youngsters in India, in the West Indies, around the world. They want to play for their country. They want to play a sport, but they're just not good enough. So I feel that to sort of the bad elements and youngsters picking up the bad elements in life is because sometimes they can't fulfill their passion. And I know for a fact that I have had friends who have turned to, doing untoward things, that were outstanding cricketers or outstanding football players, but they just didn't make it. And they had to look somewhere else. So I would like to see a lot more attention paid to sport, but not just at the elite level. At the level where all the other guys and girls who have passion could continue playing sport. And it doesn't mean that I didn't represent my country. I was still able to have a career in sport. And I believe if we focus on that, I think you'd find yourself indirectly reducing, other negative things in the nation. Because I grew up as a young boy. I know all the intricacies of growing up as a young boy. But with my skill of cricket, these things were put on, in the back of my mind. I had something to work forward to. Some youngsters don't have anything to work forward to. And when they get to 18, 19, and they can't play the sport, or they realize that they're not good enough, they turn to other things. So I think sport is the most important tool that a government or a nation could use, and I just feel that they don't pay enough attention to it.
Great. Brian Lara, this has been an extremely interesting and enlightening conversation. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me.